Good afternoon and welcome to an update on the restoration of this 1950 Chris Craft Riviera 20 here in Hamilton, New Zealand. Today is the 23rd of August 2021, and this is about 3 years to the month that I took delivery of this 1950 Riviera from Annapolis, or Minnesota in the USA. And today marks a massive milestone in the full restoration of this boat. Today I came down here with a good friend of mine and we set in this last starboard tow rail just here. This last starboard tow rail being the last piece of timber to be glued into this boat. And so we're now at a point where we can start to think our way forward around final fairing and preparation for staining, etc. So this boat is hull number 507. It's the 7th 20-foot boat that they made out of a total of 288 hulls between 1950 and 1954. And when the boat turned up, it presented in quite tidy condition, but upon closer inspection, obviously these boats were never glued together, so the mechanical fastenings had run their race, and obviously you had a lot of rot set in the joints. This joint here being an example. These joints were never glued, so the water used to get in and sit on the horizontal deck shelf, and they would rot up these, so it had a lot of rot here, and the boat had a lot of rot down in this back section of the boat here, where the water used to run down and once again would sit underneath this timber, this covering board, which had no glue, so the water could sit in there and rot. It rotted here, and of course they were pretty renowned of rotting down in this section here. So upon purchasing this boat, we flipped the boat over, we stripped the boat out completely. The boat had, I can't track its history back previous to 1983. It had an owner from 1983 to 1990. It was bought in 1990 by a chap in Minneapolis, and then I purchased it off him and off his estate in 2018. Jan Berghoff helped me put this boat together, get it in a container and get it to New Zealand. So when this boat arrived, it was it hadn't been run since 1990. It had been refinished in 1990, but definitely was worn out. And so we stripped the boat out. It's got the matching original MBL 158 horsepower motor, and we sent that motor off, and it's taken about 18 months to get that motor completely rebuilt, ready to go back into this boat. The motor's had 6 new pistons, 4 new liners, handmade valves, all new bearings. It's been a bit of a mission restoring a 70-year-old engine. Lots of parts hard to find, and we're now just currently trying to source a better carburetor, because the updraft Zenith carburetor's bit of a problem. So we flipped this boat over. We replaced all the oak frames in the back aft end of the boat. So you can see them here. Some of them haven't had paint on the top surfaces, so all those oak frames were replaced brand new. They were made a little bit thicker because they're a little bit weak in their original design. The boat was completely released off the engine bearers and the keels, and then completely reset everywhere with all new silicon bronze bolts and screws. We're able through the elbows and down through that center section, all new keel to bearer bolts, silicon bronzed, and then digested the Dan Darnenberg's book around how to do a 5200 bottom and just got stuck in. So 60 tubes of 5200, a skin and Meranti ply, and all new steam bent mahogany planks to make up the bottom, which has all just really come together. We then put 2 coats on the bottom of this boat, 4 coats of penetrating epoxy, barrier coat epoxy, and then flip the boat over. And on flipping the boat over, we realised that we weren't really going to get away with the deck rebuild that we wanted. So this boat was stripped right back down to braced, stripped right back down to a hull, and set to. We replaced both sections of this horizontal deck beam that sits underneath this part of the boat. It had rotted down these aft corners that I mentioned, so we replaced both aft sections of those, and then we replaced through a fair bit of effort, we replaced this horizontal deck beam that runs through underneath this part of the boat, and that sort of kind of finished that off. What we did keep though is we kept these two horizontal sections that sit underneath here, the two horizontal parts that come up the boat that these frames connect into, these cross frames connect into. So we kept that, and that gave us a real good sort of base as to set everything back to, because we knew that was where it was, and we were sort of kind of okay. So yeah, we were pretty lucky to be able to do that. So we got away with that, but all the deck beams are new. And then of course we set off to build a whole new deck. So this took me about 5 months to start and about 2 weeks to complete. I didn't know where to start. I kept reading the books. I didn't know how to create these planks, but in the end we just sort of got stuck in and got on with it. So all new deck beams. The transom is fully new. That was a bit of a journey. I will say that the timber that these boats are made out of, and this is a good example right here. So this piece of timber is the original piece of 70-year-old Chris Craft mahogany. This is a piece of 70-year-old Chris Craft mahogany, and then of course it had rotted, so we didn't want to replace this whole plank. So we've come up the boat about 1.2 meters, 1.2 yards, and we've replaced this. So this is new, this is existing, and this is existing. This is new. The timber we found through lots of research is actually a dark red Meranti, and I bought this timber. I'm in New Zealand, and I bought this timber out of Perth in Australia, and we had it all milled in New Zealand. So I was really passionate around keeping as much timber as I could. And so to talk to that a bit further, this covering board at the rear section of the boat is brand new. We've machined this and cut it in. This transom one is new, albeit it's made out of 3 pieces because I couldn't get the right size stock. So I've put this joint in here where the caulking will come down to form the detail onto the transom. So pretty cool detail. But this covering board at the aft end is new. But this covering board here, this one that runs up the center of the boat, is the original covering board. And what we did is we carefully, took ages, we carefully maneuvered it off the boat with a renovator tool. So we took a renovator tool and took this boat off with all the bungs attached and then put it aside and kept it. Now it had some decay in the end, so we trimmed it back about 1.5 inches on each end, and then brought this covering board into it. But I really wanted to keep as much original timber as I could. I feel it's been real worthwhile to make the effort to keep this sort of timber. And then we've bedded that in, fully bedded in 5200, and then fixed it in from underneath. But the fastenings are irrelevant. Now they're using this sort of level of 5200, the fastenings become irrelevant. So all the timber on the bow of this boat is original. When we get up close to the bow here, it certainly had, it's 70 years old. It had some decay, so we've done a lot of work in here with some 5200, and I've just filled that in with some epoxy. So this has been bedded in 5200. There's a little slight Dutchman here that's been 5200 into the boat, and the same on this side. There's a slight 52, slight line just here, which is a Dutchman I put in just to get us to detail with that. And of course that's all nice and tight. These have all been tidied up, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, this covering board's new. And then on the inside, full 5200 bottom. You can see that it's got some new plank jointers there. Most of the boat had a coat put on it when the boat was upside down, stripped off, but it still needs 2 coats for the inside. Well, that's going to be next week's job as I sort of kind of swim myself through that. And then over the last sort of 3 weeks, off and on, just as my shoulders can deal with it, we've come down and sanded this boat to get rid of all the original stain that was on the boat. We've kept some markings to give us some direction around waterline, just to get us a bit accurate. So we've got some key marks on both sides of the boat to deal with the waterline, and we should be all good to go. So that's where we're at. So this is I must say, for the effort in the boats and trying to do justice to these boats. And I take my hat off to anyone who wants to put their hand up and attack this sort of project. I come into this with absolutely no woodworking skills. I've got a dear mate of mine who's a cabinet maker by trade and a furniture maker by trade, and without him I'd be a bit lost. He's been instrumental in helping me detail this in. So I just want to just show everyone all the work that we've done down here in Hamilton, New Zealand to keep this boat alive, to keep the character of these boats alive. Today is 23 August 2021. This boat will be finished in the water for the Woody Festival in New Zealand 5 February 2022. The engine's ready to go. I've got all the stains to go. This boat's going to be shifted into another building to be stained and varnished in the next week, and then we're all steam ahead from there. The interior is ready to be retrimmed, etc. So that's a bit of an update of all the efforts that's gone on over the last 2.5 to 3 years on the resto of this 1950 Chris Craft Riviera 20, hull number 507 here in Hamilton, New Zealand.